The rain fell like judgment on the streets of Little Italy that November night in 2023. Isabella Martinez sat in the last pew of St. Anthony's Catholic Church, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles had gone pale. It was 2:30 in the morning. The church should have been locked, but Father O'Brien had started leaving it open 3 years ago after a homeless veteran froze to death on the front steps. Now it served as an unofficial sanctuary for anyone who needed refuge from the cold, the streets, or their own demons. Isabella was 34 years old, a single mother of 2, and she had exactly $9.43 to her name. In 6 hours, her landlord would be at her apartment to evict her. The rent was 3 months overdue, and the eviction notice that had been tacked to her door 3 weeks ago had expired. She'd begged for more time, had promised to pay double next month, had offered to clean the building for free, but the landlord's patience had run out. "You should have thought about your kids before you lost your job," he'd said, his face hard with the cruelty of someone who'd never known real poverty. "Not my problem. You're out by 9 a.m. tomorrow or I'm calling the cops." Isabella had lost her job at the hospital 4 months ago. She'd been a nursing assistant, good at her work, reliable, and kind, but the hospital had downsized, and she'd been one of 37 people let go in a single afternoon. They'd given her 2 weeks severance pay and a form letter thanking her for her service. She'd applied to every job she could find, fast food restaurants, retail stores, cleaning services, anything that would hire her, but the economy was bad, competition was fierce, and a single mother with limited availability wasn't anyone's first choice. The few callbacks she'd gotten had offered minimum wage for part-time hours, not nearly enough to cover rent and childcare. Her savings had evaporated within weeks, then her credit cards maxed out, then her mother's wedding ring, the only valuable thing she owned, sold to a pawn shop for $200 that went to groceries and her daughter's asthma medication. Now there was nothing left. Tomorrow morning, she and her children would be on the street. Her son Marcus was 7 years old. He loved dinosaurs and wanted to be a paleontologist. Her daughter Keisha was 5, with her father's smile and her grandmother's stubborn optimism. They were sleeping now in their apartment, unaware that tomorrow their world would collapse. Isabella had tried everything. She'd called every social service agency in New York, filled out forms for emergency housing assistance, begged churches for help, but the waiting lists were months long. The emergency shelters were full, and the bureaucracy moved at a pace that didn't account for the urgency of children about to lose their home. So she'd come here, to this church where she'd been baptized 34 years ago, where she'd made her first communion, where she'd married Robert before he'd left her for a woman with no kids and no complications. She'd come to pray, not the polite prayers of Sunday Mass, but the desperate prayers of someone with nowhere else to turn. "God," she whispered into the darkness, her voice breaking, "I don't know if you're listening. I don't know if you care about someone like me, but I'm begging you, please help my babies. They didn't do anything wrong. They don't deserve to sleep in a shelter or on the street. Marcus is doing so well in school, and Keisha just started kindergarten, and she loves it so much." Tears streamed down her face, hot and bitter. "I've tried everything. I've worked hard my whole life. I've never asked for handouts, never wanted charity, but I'm asking now. I'm begging, please God, send me a miracle, send me help, send me anything. Just don't let my children suffer because I failed them." Her voice rose, the words pouring out in a flood of desperation and pain. "I'll do anything. I'll work 3 jobs. I'll clean toilets. I'll scrub floors on my hands and knees. Just give me a chance. Give my kids a chance. Please, God, please." She collapsed forward, her forehead pressing against the pew in front of her, her body shaking with sobs, and that's when a voice came from the darkness. "He heard you!" Isabella's head snapped up, her heart hammering. She looked around wildly, trying to locate the source of the voice. It had come from somewhere near the altar, deep and rough, with an Italian accent that spoke of old country roots. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice shaking. "Someone who has no right to be in this church, someone God should have struck down years ago, but someone who heard your prayer and knows what it sounds like when a soul is breaking." A figure emerged from the shadows near the confessional. He was a man, maybe 50 years old, wearing an expensive suit that was torn and blood-stained. Even in the dim light of the church, Isabella could see the dark stain spreading across his white shirt, could see the way he moved with the careful precision of someone in severe pain. "Don't be afraid," the man said, raising one hand in a gesture of peace. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just hiding from people who want me dead." Isabella should have run, should have screamed for help, but something in the man's voice, something in the raw pain she could hear beneath the words, kept her frozen in place. "You're hurt," she said. "You need a hospital." "I can't go to a hospital. The people looking for me have connections everywhere. The moment I walk into an ear, they'll know, and they'll come to finish what they started." He moved closer, and Isabella could see his face more clearly. It was a strong face, handsome despite the pain etched into every line. His eyes were dark, ancient with the weight of things he'd seen and done. "You said you'd do anything for your children," the man said. "I'm going to make you an offer and you're going to think I'm insane or dangerous or both, but I'm asking you to hear me out before you run." "What kind of offer?" "The kind that could save your children, and maybe, just maybe, save me too." His name was Giovanni Dante, and he was the head of the Dante crime family. For 25 years, he'd controlled the heroin trade flowing through the port of Newark, the gambling operations in 3 states, and enough legitimate businesses to make him one of the wealthiest men in New Jersey. The Dante name was whispered with fear and respect from New York to Philadelphia. But 2 weeks ago, his world had imploded. His underboss, a man named Carlo, who Giovanni had trusted like a brother, had been an FBI informant for 3 years. Carlo had recordings, documents, evidence of crimes that would put Giovanni away for life. The FBI had moved to arrest Giovanni at his restaurant in Hoboken, but he'd been tipped off by a cop on his payroll and had escaped minutes before they arrived. Now he was a fugitive. The FBI wanted him for racketeering, murder, and drug trafficking. His own organization wanted him dead because a captured boss was a liability, and rival families were circling like sharks, sensing weakness, ready to take his territory. Giovanni had been shot twice. While escaping from a meeting that had turned out to be an ambush, he'd lost a lot of blood, but he'd managed to make it to Little Italy, to the neighborhood where he'd grown up, where his grandmother had taught him to pray before she'd taught him to fight. He'd broken into St. Anthony's Church planning to die there. It seemed fitting somehow to end where he'd begun, in this place that represented everything he'd turned away from when he'd chosen the life. But then he'd heard Isabella praying, and something in her words, in her desperate honesty, in her willingness to humble herself completely for the sake of her children, had cracked open something in Giovanni that he'd thought was dead years ago, his conscience. "I have money," Giovanni told Isabella as they sat in the pew, the church silent around them, except for the rain hammering against the stained glass windows. "A lot of money, hidden in places the FBI will never find. And I'm going to die anyway, probably within the week, so I want to give it to someone who'll use it for something good." "Why me?" "Because I heard your prayer, and I heard something real, not greed, not selfishness, just a mother desperate to protect her children. That's rare. In my world, everyone wants something, everyone has an angle, but you just want your kids to be safe. That's pure." Isabella looked at this bleeding mob boss with his expensive ruined suit and his eyes full of old sins. "What do you want in return?" "2 things. First, you hide me for 3 days. Just 3 days. Give me somewhere safe to recover enough strength to finish what I need to do. Second, when I'm gone, you tell my story to someone who matters. A priest, a reporter, someone who can make sure people know that at the end, I tried to do one good thing. That's it? That's it. 3 days of hiding me, and in return I give you $500,000 in cash, enough to pay your rent for years, enough to send your kids to college, enough to finally breathe." Isabella's mind was reeling. $500,000. It was more money than she could imagine, but this man was a criminal. The money was probably earned through suffering and death. Taking it would make her complicit. "I can see you thinking," Giovanni said. "Weighing the moral cost, let me make it easier for you, this money. It's already tainted. It's already stained with blood. Nothing you do or don't do will change that. The question is whether it sits in a hidden safe forever, accomplishing nothing, or whether it goes to feed 2 children who deserve better than the hand life dealt them. Why are you really doing this?" Giovanni was quiet for a long moment. "I have a daughter, had a daughter, Maria. She died when she was 6 years old, leukemia. I spent millions trying to save her, flew her to the best doctors in the world, tried every treatment, but nothing worked." His voice cracked. "The night before she died, she asked me if I was a good man, and I lied to her. I told her yes. I told her Daddy was a good man who helped people. She died believing that lie." He looked at Isabella with eyes full of old grief. "Your daughter is 5, the same age Maria was when she got sick. When I heard you praying for your children, I heard my wife's voice from all those years ago, begging God to save our little girl. God didn't answer then, but maybe he's giving me a chance to answer now, to do one good thing before I die, to help someone's daughter survive when mine didn't." Isabella felt tears on her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss. Don't be sorry for me. I'm a monster who's done terrible things, but your children are innocent. They deserve a chance, so what do you say? Will you hide me for 3 days? Will you let me do this one good thing?" Isabella thought about Marcus and his dinosaur books, about Keisha and her dreams of becoming a dancer, about the eviction notice and the shelter system, and the possibility of losing her children to foster care if she couldn't provide for them. "Yes," she said finally, "I'll help you." Getting Giovanni to her apartment was the hardest part. He could barely walk, and the streets were starting to show signs of early morning activity. Isabella ended up calling a car service, telling the driver her uncle had too much to drink at a wedding and needed help getting home. The driver bought it, probably because Giovanni looked more like a homeless man than a crime boss, with his torn, blood-stained clothes hidden under an old coat Isabella found in the church donation box. Her apartment was small, a two-bedroom walk-up in Washington Heights that smelled of mildew and had pipes that clanged all night, but it was clean, and more importantly, it was hers. At least for 6 more hours, Giovanni collapsed on her couch, his face grey with pain. Isabella had done some nursing training before she'd switched to nursing assistant work, and she could see that his wounds were serious. 2 gunshots, one in the shoulder and one in the side, both had gone through, which was good, but the wounds were infected, and he'd lost a dangerous amount of blood. "I need to clean these," she said. "It's going to hurt. I've been shot before. Do what you need to do." Isabella worked quickly, using supplies from the first aid kit she kept for the kids' scraped knees and bumped heads. It wasn't enough, not really, but it was all she had. She cleaned the wounds with hydrogen peroxide, making Giovanni hiss through his teeth. She packed them with gauze and wrapped them as tight as she could. "You need antibiotics," she said. "Without them, infection will kill you in a few days. I have a contact, a doctor who used to work for my organization. He owes me favors. I'll call him tomorrow, have him bring supplies." Hey, if you're invested in Isabella and Giovanni's impossible situation, could you hit that like button? It really helps stories like this reach the people who need to hear them. And trust me, what happens over the next 3 days will change both their lives forever. The children woke up at 6:30, their voices bright with the innocence of kids who don't know their world is about to collapse. Isabella met them in the hallway before they could see Giovanni. "Babies, we have a guest," she said, kneeling to their level. "Uncle Giovanni, he's a friend who got hurt and needs a place to stay for a few days. I need you both to be very quiet and very good, okay?" "Is he nice?" Keisha asked, her eyes wide. "He's someone who needs our help, and we help people when they need it, right?" Marcus, always the more cautious one, frowned. "Why is he hurt?" "He had an accident, but he's going to be okay now. I need you two to get ready for school extra quiet today, okay?" After the children left for school, Isabella sat down with Giovanni. He was awake, propped up on her couch, looking around her small apartment with eyes that took in every detail. "You keep it nice," he said. "Clean, despite everything. You maintain dignity. It's all I have left. It's more than most people have. Dignity isn't about money. It's about how you carry yourself when everything else is gone. Is that from experience? I grew up 3 blocks from here. My father was a janitor. My mother cleaned houses for rich people in Westchester. We lived in a place smaller than this, 6 of us in 2 rooms, but my mother kept it spotless. She used to say that being poor wasn't shameful, but being dirty was. That dignity was something no one could take from you." "What happened? How did you go from that to—" Isabella gestured vaguely, encompassing everything a mob boss represented. "The usual story. My father died when I was 14. Heart attack. From working 3 jobs, my mother couldn't make rent. We were going to be evicted. Sound familiar?" Isabella nodded slowly. "A man from the neighborhood, a man everyone knew was connected, offered me work, running errands, delivering messages. The money was good, more than my father had made in a week. I told myself it was just temporary, just until we got back on our feet, but temporary became permanent. One job led to another. By the time I was 20, I was making more money than I'd ever dreamed of. By 30, I was running my own crew. By 40, I was the boss. Do you regret it?" Giovanni thought about that. "I regret what it cost. My wife left me when Maria got sick. She said I'd brought a curse on our family, that God was punishing us for the life I lived. She was probably right. I regret the people I hurt, the families I destroyed with the drugs I sold. I regret becoming exactly the kind of man my mother prayed I'd never be. But you can't undo it. No, I can't undo it, but maybe I can do one thing right before I die. Maybe I can save your children the way I couldn't save my daughter." Over the next 3 days, an unlikely bond formed between Isabella and Giovanni. She cared for his wounds, changing his bandages twice a day, monitoring for signs of infection. His doctor contact came on the 2nd day with antibiotics and proper medical supplies. A thin, nervous man who didn't ask questions and left as quickly as he could, Giovanni told her stories of his life. Not the violent parts, not the crimes, but the human moments. His grandmother teaching him to make pasta sauce the old Sicilian way. His daughter's laugh, the way she'd curl up in his lap to watch cartoons. His mother's funeral, where half the neighborhood came to pay respects to a cleaning woman who'd never hurt anyone. "She died never knowing what I really did," Giovanni said. "She thought I was in waste management, legitimate business. I lied to her for 20 years, and she died believing her son was a good man. I robbed her of the truth. Maybe that was a kindness. Isabella said. Maybe she knew deep down but chose to believe the lie because the truth would have hurt too much. Is that what you tell yourself? That ignorance is kindness? Sometimes when the truth is so terrible that knowing it only causes pain. Isabella told him her own stories. Her childhood in the Bronx, raised by a single mother who worked as a hospital cafeteria worker. Her dreams of becoming a nurse, derailed by an unexpected pregnancy at 23. Her marriage to Robert, a man who'd seemed charming until the responsibility of children made him realize he wasn't ready for that life. He sends $100 a month for both kids, Isabella said bitterly. $100, that's what he thinks they're worth, less than his car payment. Some men aren't built for responsibility. They run when things get hard. It's cowardice dressed up as freedom. Were you there for your daughter before she got sick? Giovanni was quiet for a long moment. No, I was building an empire, expanding territory, making money. I missed her first words because I was negotiating a drug deal. I missed her first steps because I was in Atlantic City meeting with casino owners. I thought I was providing for her, giving her a better life. But what I was really doing was abandoning her for power. At least you see it now. Some men never do. On the third morning, Isabella woke to find Giovanni standing by the window, looking out at the street below. He'd regained some strength, could move without wincing, though he was still pale and obviously weak. They're out there, he said quietly. Isabella joined him at the window. She didn't see anything unusual, just the normal morning chaos of Washington Heights. People heading to work, kids walking to school, vendors setting up their carts. How can you tell? The man in the coffee shop across the street, he's been there for 2 hours, hasn't bought anything. He keeps looking up at this building, and the car parked 3 spaces down. Been there since 5 a.m. with someone sitting in the driver's seat. That's surveillance. They found me. Isabella felt ice in her stomach. What do we do? Nothing. They won't move during the day. Too many witnesses. They'll wait until tonight. Assume I'm weak and trapped, then they'll come. He turned to face her. Which means I need to leave before dark. Need to finish what I came back to do. Which is? Make sure you get the money and make sure the people who betrayed me pay for what they did. Giovanni, you're still weak. You can barely stand. How are you going to? I'm not looking to survive this, Isabella. I told you that from the start. I'm a dead man walking. The FBI wants me. My own people want me. The rival families want me. There's no way out, but I can choose how I go. I can go out cowering and hiding, or I can go out making sure the people I care about are protected. I'm not going to let you die for me, he smiled, and it was sad and genuine. You already saved me 3 days ago. I was ready to die in that church. I'd given up, but you gave me a reason to keep fighting, even if it's just for 3 more days. You showed me that there's still good in the world worth protecting. That's a gift, Isabella. Don't undervalue it. He pulled out a piece of paper with an address written on it. This is a storage unit in Queens. Unit 217. The key is taped under the wheel well of my car, which is parked at... He gave her another address. Inside the unit is a briefcase. Inside the briefcase is $500,000 in cash, divided into 50 stacks of $10,000 each. Isabella took the paper with shaking hands. Take it, use it for your children, use it to build the life you deserve, and when people ask where it came from, you tell them it was an inheritance from a distant uncle. No one will question it, no one will care. What about you? What are you going to do? I'm going to call Carlo, the man who betrayed me. I'm going to tell him I want to meet, that I'm ready to turn myself into the FBI in exchange for a deal. He'll come because he'll want to make sure I'm really caught, and when he does, I'm going to make sure he never betrays anyone else again. That's suicide. That's justice. He killed my brother. He destroyed my family. He deserves what's coming. Isabella grabbed his arm. Giovanni, please don't do this. We can figure something else out. There is nothing else. This is the only way your children stay safe. If I run, if I hide, they'll keep looking, and eventually they'll figure out that someone helped me. They'll come here looking for answers. But if I'm dead, if this ends tonight, then you're just a woman who had nothing to do with any of it. You're safe. He pulled her into a hug, careful of his wounds. Thank you, Isabella, for giving me these 3 days, for reminding me what it means to be human, for showing me that even someone like me can do one good thing at the end. You're more than one good thing. You're a father who loved his daughter. You're a son who honored his mother. You're a man who heard a prayer and chose to answer it. Maybe, but mostly, I'm a criminal who's killed people and destroyed families. The good doesn't erase the bad. It just means I'm complicated like most people. He pulled back, looked at her face like he was memorizing it. Your children are lucky to have you. Don't ever doubt that. And don't let anyone make you feel like you're less than enough. You're a warrior, Isabella Martinez. You're just fighting a different kind of war. After Giovanni left, Isabella sat in her apartment for a long time, holding the paper with the address, crying for a man she'd known for only 3 days, but who'd changed her life forever. The news broke the next morning. Giovanni Dante head of the Dante crime family, found dead in a warehouse in Hoboken, also dead. Carlo Russo, the FBI informant who'd brought down the organization, reports suggested a murder-suicide, the final act of a desperate man with nothing left to lose. The FBI held a press conference. They'd recovered weapons, documents, enough evidence to prosecute 24 other members of the organization. They called it a successful operation, the end of a criminal enterprise that had plagued New Jersey for decades. They didn't mention the woman in Washington Heights who'd hidden Giovanni for 3 days. They didn't know about her, and they never would. Isabella went to the storage unit that afternoon, her hands shaking as she unlocked it. Inside was exactly what Giovanni had promised, a briefcase containing $500,000 in cash. She sat in her car in the parking lot and cried for 20 minutes. Then she drove home and paid her landlord 3 months' rent in advance. She enrolled Marcus in a better school. She got Keisha into a dance program she'd been begging for. She opened a bank account and deposited most of the money, carefully, in amounts small enough to not trigger suspicion. And she kept her promise. She went to St. Anthony's Church and told Father O'Brien everything, about Giovanni showing up wounded, about the 3 days she'd hidden him, about his story and his daughter, and his final act of redemption. Father O'Brien listened without judgment, then said, "God works in mysterious ways. Sometimes he sends angels. Sometimes he sends broken men trying to become angels. Both deserve our grace." 5 years later, Isabella Martinez stood at the graduation ceremony for her nursing degree. She'd gone back to school, finished what she'd started all those years ago before life had gotten in the way. Marcus was 12 now, thriving in private school, already talking about meat. Keisha was 10, performing in recitals, her smile bright enough to light up any room. Isabella had used Giovanni's money carefully. She'd bought a small house in a better neighborhood. She'd invested in her children's education. She'd donated a significant amount to St. Anthony's Church for their homeless outreach program, and she'd created a small scholarship fund in memory of Maria Dante, Giovanni's daughter, for children with cancer whose families couldn't afford treatment. She never told anyone where the money really came from. As far as the world knew, it was an inheritance from a distant uncle, but Isabella knew the truth, and every night she said a prayer for Giovanni Dante. Not the mob boss, not the criminal, but the father who'd loved his daughter, the son who'd honored his mother, and the man who'd heard a desperate prayer and chose to answer it. Even at the cost of his own life, she'd gone to the church that night planning to pray to God, but it was a broken man hiding in the shadows who'd heard her, and somehow, impossibly, he'd been the answer to her prayer. Sometimes grace comes from the places we least expect. Sometimes redemption looks like a bleeding criminal who chooses to save someone instead of himself. Sometimes a miracle wears an expensive torn suit and speaks with an Italian accent. And sometimes the most unlikely person becomes an angel, not because they were perfect, but because they chose in their final moments to do one genuinely good thing. Isabella graduated with honors that day. Her children cheered from the audience, and somewhere, she liked to imagine, Giovanni Dante was watching too, finally at peace, finally reunited with his daughter, finally able to tell her honestly that at the end, her daddy had been a good man, not because of what he'd been, but because of who he'd chosen to become in those final 3 days, when he'd heard a prayer and decided to be the answer, the end. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share. Drop a comment. Have you ever been helped by an unexpected person? Do you believe in redemption, even for people who've done terrible things? What would you have done in Isabella's position? This is a story about grace appearing in the most unlikely forms, about desperate prayers being answered in ways we never expect, about the power of choosing good, even when you've spent a lifetime choosing wrong. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. See you in the next story.